So with that, what I would like to do is I would like to go ahead and introduce our first speaker, Ellen Coopersmith. Ellen is the founder of Decision Frameworks, which she founded in 1999. And I note that I just saw on LinkedIn that you are celebrating, indeed, your 25th anniversary. So congratulations on that. I think that's fantastic. Ellen specializes in decision quality facilitation, consultation, training, implementation. And prior to starting Decision Frameworks, she led one of the oil industry's most successful implementations of decision and risk analysis for Conoco. Ellen is an esteemed friend of mine and a mentor, someone I call on often when I have questions. So without further ado, Ellen, welcome to the stage.
The wonderful person who wrote this abstract and title is not here. It's Dave Matheson, so you guys get me. And I have I put together the slides for Carl, really thinking that you will all be brand new to decision analysis and decision quality, and I see a lot of you that are not. So you're just going to have to bear with me. I'm fortunate in that I just had a regular job at a regular company. I'm an engineer by degree, and Conoco, 30 years ago now, decided to go through a reorganization. And any of you who've been with big companies, you know how that happens. And when we came out of it, they decided, we were owned by DuPont at the time, and they decided they needed to be better at making decisions. And DuPont had been implementing decision and risk analysis, DNRA. So one of Carl's colleagues was Kenny Oppenheimer, and Kenny had trained the DuPont Freds, Fred and Fred, and they came into Conoco and taught those of us at Conoco how to, about decision and risk analysis. We called it DNRA, and we had unbelievable championship. So where a lot of companies are not so fortunate, we were very fortunate. And they told me it was a one-year job. Just come in and implement this, and then we'll find you something really great to do. And that position still exists today. And actually, I'm not as educated as like many of the people in the room in decision analysis and all these wonderful things, but it made a lot of sense. I saw how much it really helped bring clarity to different parts of the organization and different decisions, and I was very attracted to it. So I learned it, and I was their director of decision risk analysis for the first 5 years. And then I jumped off and had no business plan at all and decided to form Decision Frameworks. And we would be very excited. We'd invite SDG in to come and speak. We had internal decision symposium, and it was probably the best job I ever had. And by chance, I was listening to him today, can we plan for anything and what do we value and all that. So for those of you who are new, it's probably one of the best career paths for the right kind of people. And you don't have to have a wonderful degree in it. You need to want to learn and think and apply it to regular everyday decisions. And so what I think it is to be a decision professional is a very fortunate person who can apply it to different decisions all over, nonprofit, for-profit, at home, and things like that. And I've been fortunate through SDP and what was called DAG, the Decision Analysis Affinity Group, to learn from people like yourselves. So how many in here are new to decision? Now we call it decision quality, right? Okay, so I'm probably speaking to you, and then I've got all these leaders who have way more experience than me to speak. So we'll definitely be sharing the conversation. I think the thing to understand is any of us can learn how to do it. And I think that's an important aspect. I see this as an additive to whatever you were taught and have been applying. So I really, like I said, inherited this presentation, but the decision professional is really the backbone to enabling quality decision making in the organization. And you're going to figure out your style and what fits for you according to what the organization is ready for and what you need, but making it not a process and just a way of thinking is probably the key. And then bringing the decision professional into the different aspects of the jobs that you're going to have throughout your career is a really important thing. Okay, so what does it mean? This is Dave, so I'm going to kind of go. He talks about, wonderful Dave Matheson, we all met him this morning. The Society of Decision Professionals is committed to a great decision every time. How do we do that? Well, let's kind of go through. He talks about being decision leadership, serving as decision makers in the things we do naturally, I think. Decision quality, helping bring quality decision making and the choice in hindsight, and really just kind of having a structured process. I think of the decision engineering piece as evaluating the choices, and some of the framing as the ability to structure the conversations. Okay, so for us, and I got this more from all the years, is, everybody has some version, but it's really define and frame, evaluate and decide, and then this conversation between the decision makers and the project teams that are doing it. And to look at what Ralph Keeney teaches us, I really think, even listening today, it's around getting people to forget the process and just think of this is probably the biggest part of being a decision professional in your meetings, in your interactions, in your house. So what decision do we need to make? What is important to us for that decision? So we're no longer running around like we were originally going, expected value decision makers. What are our options and how do they compare? And the decision professional is really just helping these questions in the conversation as they work through different things in their organization and their profession. So the decision professional really specializes in, so we don't have this up here, really specializes in assisting individuals and organizations make these quality decisions. Alrighty, so as I've got now 30 years, I really believe that a good decision professional helps the teams they're working with and the leaders they're working with understand that in decision quality, if I've learned nothing else, the sun rises and sets with the decision makers. It rises and sets with what they value, and it rises and sets in what they want us to look at, and our job is to enable that. And I think helping understand that is a collaboration, but we're in service to them. And in any ways that we can be in service to them is really the way we will advance quality decision-making in the organization. So I used to say, ours is not to critique the decisions that are made, but to help make sure that as a professional, we're helping them understand the decisions and the implications, but it's still their choice. And I think that's an important evolution of the decision professional, right? We're not necessarily a management consulting firm telling them what decision to make, but helping them understand their options and the implications according to what they value. And so it's that kind of camaraderie with the decision makers and the teams, I think, that will advance your career and help advance it in the organizations that we all work with. Alrighty, so really we're facilitating this understanding, and sometimes I think it gets lost in the noise of what I see. Alrighty, so many years ago, I don't know if we have anyone here from Eli Lilly, but Eli Lilly donated the Decision Makers Bill of Rights. And I think it's important as a decision professional that we help them see this. So we'll use this, the decision professionals, if you're in your organization, using that as part of a backdrop, even in posters and things, I think is important. And again, the sun rises and sets with these ladies and gentlemen. So every decision maker, as you know, has the right to a decision frame. You have the ability to help them understand that as a professional, right? They have a right to consider alternatives so that when they're making choices, they're making informed choices according to what's in front of them, right? They have a right to reliable and relevant information. As a decision professional, it is our job to make sure there's quality inputs to it. So we're working at however we can in the organization to ensure that it happens. We call it the blessing of the numbers. And then understand the potential consequences. And then turn it over to them. So in the organizations where I think the decision professionals have a really great position is where the leaders actually want options and an understanding of how they compare. And then some leaders are like, Ellen, I really want my team to recommend, right? I don't know how many of you guys hear that. And so what do we tell the teams? You can recommend given you prioritize certain things that you value. And then don't get your feelings hurt when they choose something else, because those trade-offs, again, as a decision professional, belong to the leaders. Our job is to help them understand that. So logical analysis that allows them to draw the conclusions, and then effective facilitation. So I think as a decision professional, you're going to be relaxed around how much they want a facilitator and how much they want someone who's guiding the conversations. And you have to be flexible to be successful. And different parts of you and the organizations that you're fortunate enough to work with are going to have a different role. So sometimes it's a very strong facilitative role. Sometimes it's a very, I call it Lucy Arnaz from I Love Lucy. You're still helping all those things happen, but you may not be able to be or should be explicit. So I think a decision professional is flexible in reading the room and the culture a little bit. So we measure, as you guys know, the quality of the decisions. I think some organizations are ready to have each step kind of how are we doing in the approach, right? How are we doing, which is really what we're calling a quality decision, not the outcome. So these should match everybody else's frame and scope, creative alternatives. The values and objectives over my 30 years, we are now very good about saying, what are the things you're going to consider? They may be financial considerations. They really need, as a decision professional, for us to understand what other things are important. Opening the doors to new opportunities, making sure certain stakeholders are, and that relationship is cultivated. I think as we work more in governments and the military, it's according to what they value. What do we need to consider? So I usually encourage our decision professionals to talk about what are your main considerations, right? What are the things you know everyone's going to be discussing when it comes time to choose, and not being prescriptive, but facilitative, right? Good information, quality inputs, that's your job to make sure it happens. How the organization lets you do it is going to be up to you. Logical and correct reasoning. Our job is to help them understand the impact of the choices according to what they're ready for. So if they're not ready for S-curves and risk profiles, but they're ready for sensitivities to lay things out, it's the conversation of you understanding what they want. And then figuring out culturally how to help them understand the impact of the options that they have. And then getting the right people involved. So I think I've gotten very, very strict in my old age of doing this around a decision problem statement and a governance that we send out to like every team that's even thinking about a decision, whether they're going to have a decision professional facilitate it or they're going to try and do it themselves. I think we are too lax, potentially, as decision professionals in figuring out who are the right people to be involved. And you're going to get, promise, as a decision professional or as a facilitator, whatever you want to call yourself, tripped up if you don't. So now I'm just like, who's going to make this decision? Who do you need to bring along? Who has relevant information? And those are the first two helpful documents to send to people trying to use decision quality, small decisions and large. Alrighty, so I think early on we figured out, and Carl helped us do that what we call decision quality now is a three-legged stool. It truly is being able to have framing to define what is the decision we need to make, what alternatives might we want to consider. It is this decision maker dialogue. As a decision professional using it in a new organization, they're going to feel really weird about a frame review, right? It's like, oh, we don't do that. We only meet when we recommend. And so those are culturally, a decision professional has to help those conversations happen carefully, but make it start happening, right? And then it is this analysis to gain insight, sometimes being able to explicitly show them uncertainty and how the sensitivities impact, and if not, you figuring out a way. When decisions, we always tell the professionals that we're trying to develop, when something is just not moving, think of which leg it is. It's one of them, right? Is it just we don't have the right people? Is it that they think they want all one set of assumptions, but they can't get beyond what they're going to do? You're going to have to think through these legs and then help them not teeter. So basically, different, wonderful, brilliant academics have brought us by the org behavior people, brought us the frame and the decision maker dialogue, and of course it's the mathematicians who brought us all this wonderful uncertainty analysis. So it's really a marriage of many parts of universities, and we should be very fortunate and proud, I think. Alrighty, so we know that we're trying to understand human decision making and their behavior and all the biases, but really what we're bringing to the organization is a way not to counteract the bias, but to manage it. And it's the structured conversations that we're able to help have, the teams have, right? Alrighty, so we think we want to be a decision professional. Some of your organizations don't want them, right? Others may. And the bottom line is you can be a decision professional regardless if you're in a fortunate implementation like I was, or you're in an organization trying to help quality decisions happen. You're just going to need to be flexible. But it's this whole problem of crossing the chasm. So this book has nothing to do with decision analysis, has to do with how to market and sell technologies, right? But I think of it as the same for decision quality, because we have a technology. So there's these few people who go to these wonderful classes from Carl and others. Oh, man, this is great. We need it. We're the person who just loves that idea. And you get these early adopters. The hardest part about the implementations is how do we ever get over to a majority? And that's the thing that we all work and struggle. You're going to need to be open-minded and see how to get that to happen, because basically we need it to be just a way of thinking for the organization. And given that, and then embedding these different facilitators that can do it and have an inclination, like they just want to. The best decision professionals, it just resonates with them internally for some weird reason, like myself, like Terry, like many of you. But you want to cross that chasm. So a lot of times you're trying to have the conversation of why would a leader want this in their organization? So through conversations, it's really trying to understand and convey this without some horrible objectives hierarchy. But we're trying to improve decisions within the company. If the leaders are completely happy, they don't need it. Somehow it's working. Decision making is working for them. But improving the alternatives considered, improving the evaluation of those alternatives, and improving the efficiency and the alignment around the decisions. So as a decision professional, trying to help convey through questions and discussions what is going to be their driver to support you. Alrighty, and then what you need to do when we talk to all these different companies, ultimately the thinking has to get embedded. And you have to figure out, again, as a decision professional, where are we going to get it embedded? There's different levels of people that need to understand skill more and less and develop their skill and let them apply it. Then we have to cultivate awareness. That championship support, I think, that I had at Conica was pretty amazing. There are other organizations, but otherwise you're having to do this more insidiously. You're going to have your own internal tools and approaches, because if you can't make it easy, you're never going to cross that chasm. And then I really think the ones that decision professionals and what we can aspire to is leading those implementations. And it's a great job. You'll love it if you're fortunate enough to have that, like I was able to, and there's some that are here. And it gives you a sense of self and purpose within the organization and what you're doing. Alrighty, so really, then there's different ways, and you'll be talking to lots of people around developing skills. Somehow, a decision professional sometimes has to work with how do you train the leaders if they don't want training. And so that's going to be part of the conversations, you thinking it through. I liked what he talked about, Snowden talked about. It isn't always straightforward. We have to understand the situation we're in and what can we do next. And I certainly think that resonated with how we're developing the needed skills, both in the leaders and then these wonderful people that are lucky enough to do this the majority of their time, if not full-time, in the organizations. Right? And so then I think of, as a decision professional, when you're trying to develop your skill, you don't necessarily develop it all at the same time. You like to understand it all, but we're really trying to get people that are good framers and help them get good at different types of decisions. Where we see the decision professionals in the organization, you develop your skill where you have often applications, right? So you're not going to have everybody who can do value of information, but you're going to have some funky groups, and all they do is de-risk projects and trial designs and appraisal programs. But we're trying to understand, teaching people how to frame, how to facilitate the process itself, those conversations, explicitly and implicitly, I think will make you the strongest profession. Uncertainty assessment and interviewing, helping the teams think about the atypical, odd uncertainties that everything is hinging around in their particular decisions. For those, you're going to need some folks eventually that can do probabilistic analysis or do sensitivity analysis so that the what if decisions, the what if questions can be answered by the leaders and the teams. And then really some scenario thinking. I think we bring a lot of scenarios to our different decision makers that they're thinking of anyhow. So as you're thinking about developing your skill, you can tackle it in pieces as well. And what we usually see is people get strong in different things. And we used to say you have to be whole as a group, right? You have to be whole as a group. Not everybody's going to be the best modeler. Not everyone may be the best framer. Over time, you're going to develop all of that. And then what kind of career path can you have? In some companies, it's more explicit than others because it doesn't necessarily fit anywhere cleanly. I think we've all talked about that. Those of us in the room have been doing this a long time. So really, you're going to start out with a DQ professional. This is going to be someone who gets good at facilitating a portion of those skills or all of them. It's going to depend on your organization and if they even have that position, or it's an add-on to an existing position. After that, if you're lucky, you're going to get to have a leadership role in the implementation. And a lot of the companies have core teams. We had at Conoco, we had a decision, we called it DNRI. We had a DNRI core team. So we had a very small central organization. It was myself and one other. But we had a core implementation team that met monthly, and they were responsible for different parts of the organization, and they were growing a network of experts in their parts of the organization. So it was a very much spoken wheel, and that really enabled lots of candidates, and they were really decision quality implementation leaders in parts of the organization and then part of the core team. So it's a very coveted, fun experience and a great professional step ladder. Then often, some of us and some of you will become trusted advisors. So for particular leaders, they have a comfort knowing that you can, even if you're working with others from their team, to come in and help facilitate that particular decision and its evaluation and the conversation around the impacts and trade-offs. Because at the end, we're trying to help them think through the trade-offs as a group that they want to take, right? It's not a one thing wins all. And so this is another coveted part of your career path if you are fortunate to do that. And then what we're really looking for, and what I see at companies like my old company, now called ConocoPhillips, is executive managers in the organization. So many of the executives, at least at Conoco, right, we grew up in. We learned DNRA together. They were part of the core team. They were part of the other folks making decision and risk analysis, part of the culture and how it's done. I've seen all these wonderful people grow up, and they are leaders in their organization, but they're leaders still leading quality decision making as well as, running a country and all this wonderful thing. So if I pick an ideal career path for many of you, this is where I would say, this is the penultimate career. And then they have such satisfaction knowing when they need it and getting someone in and having someone facilitate the team. These kind of leaders send us the problem definition, right? It's like, hey, I'm thinking about this. And so we have like a one-page problem definition. And it's not the team developing it and bringing it to them and going, hey, do I have it right? It's them kind of going, hey, I've been thinking about it. Can you get someone to help me? Can you get someone to work with my team on this? This, I think, is a lovely career path that maybe you can get fortunate to go through, but it's very rewarding. And so I think, Carl, you can comment on that path that we see. There are some amazing leaders in different organizations who have grown up as this is the way of thinking. So how are you going to do it? Each really decision professional is going to kind of choose their own path. And then, of course, the situation that you're in is going to afford different paths to be open to you. So I think it's an important decision you make. I got this job by chance, right, 30 years ago, and I really liked it. And I didn't know what to do because there's going to be other jobs that were going to be encouraged upon me in the organization. And I was talking to my girlfriend, my best friend, still my best friend from engineering school, and she's with Conoco, and she's like, Ellen, the worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to quit, it doesn't work, and you're going to come back. And I'm like, oh, right? So she kind of took away the fear of trying. And that's what I would say. If this is really calling to you, taking away the fear, because if you have this skill, you're going to have options, and you're going to be able to act on those options. And you're going to be able to create some of them, and some of them are just going to knock on your door. So one of the most important decisions you make, but I don't think there's a big risk of failure. It's my opinion. It impacts home, community, and professional lives. That first little slide, what decision do we need to make, what's important to us, what are the options and how they compare, it works at home. I've got 3 boys who've now had 6 girls, and we have these conversations at a very small level. So I think it permeates your life very, very broadly. Moves the needle in material manner on regular basis. People even thinking through medical decisions or family choices or decision choices at work, it really tends to move the needle, and it gives clarity. So when we do act, we feel clear on it, and they appreciate you, and they're going to make you be very esteemed. And then develops interpersonal skills. I think the biggest thing around a decision professional is listening and trying to understand what drives these different people and what the situation is. There's a book that I like. It is called Strategic Learning from Willie Peterson, one of our clients, and forced us to learn about it. But he talks about situation analysis and brutal truths of the situation and understanding that. And I really think this self-awareness comes from this interpersonal skill of looking, stopping, listening, and then kind of figuring out your situation. And then it really develops good communication and leadership skills. Some of the coolest leaders that I see have come up through these ranks, and they're people that I enjoy, and they're people that I really respect. So I think that's what it means to be a decision professional. So a little bit different from what I think Dave was going to cover, but I think I'm speaking to it as an encouragement for those that are interested. Questions, comments?